I'm John McClean.
And I'm Chris McClean.
And we've lived here north of Uranui for 32 years now. Well, I suppose this is where the personal life choices meet the collective life choices. And I personally think that we've generated an economic system that is based on greed, and it's a system which requires, in order to work, a sort of an exponential growth year by year of more and more production and thereby more and more consumption. And on account of that, we're sort of going to hell in a handcart, really. That we do have to, at some point, meet the position of differentiating between what are reasonable needs and a reasonable degree of comfort, as compared with just greed and more, as though it's going to create happiness, which, according to the sort of, the mental health of a lot of our society, ain't altogether happening. But what makes people happy ultimately, I think, is to do with relationships. I think it's relationships with each other and relationships to their space, relationships to their food, relationships to their dwelling, their aesthetics, their culture, all of those sorts of things. And if those linkages aren't tight and strong and well recognised, then I think we're always going to be chasing these sort of straw gods that really in the end are not substantial. They don't sustain us.
Well, ever since we were first married and we lived at Te Akau, we decided we wanted to be self-sufficient as far as food, vegetables and fruit, nuts and meat is concerned, meat and fish, and that we wanted, John wanted to build a house and to use as much recycled material as possible for that. You need time to do that, but in the end I think it costs you less than building a new house. And so, growing everything we've been doing that for 40 years basically, growing all our own food and having no mortgage.
But it's also true that our parents, the generation before us, there'd be no households in the country, I would think, that did not have gardens. We've shifted away from that. We didn't shift away from it, partly because trying to live as an artist, it was necessary for me to cut costs, and so there was that aspect to it. But it's also to do with this mental health thing that I mentioned earlier, that an holistic lifestyle, a life where you live, where you are meeting your own needs. We see that this sustainability is both an economic good sense, but it's also I'll call it a spiritual good sense, if you like, the sense of the spirit, of the soul. It's enriched by living in that way.
What can you do about it? I mean, there is a lot that can be done about it. I mean, you obviously need money to put in solar panels on the roof, and in town, I think everyone should have water tanks, rainwater tanks, to collect the rainwater. I think just so much water is wasted.
I cannot understand why towns don't have water supplies, at least for gardens. Gardens and toilets, and especially when they're getting metered, for heaven's sake. Crazy. If houses are insulated, if every house had solar panels as stock standard, how much energy would the nation be saving in that way, rather than trying to, and so much of the lighting in the town is unnecessary. It's just chock-a-block full of big advertising hoardings and just, so much burned up energy for no particular purpose. But at least on a domestic level, we could all have a good measure of our water heating accounted for, especially in the temperate zones, of course. In the global warming scenario and peak oil, etc., etc., it might be serving our purposes at this point in time, but it's not going to be able to do it in this indiscriminate manner into the future. It ain't going to happen. You know, I think we should be using what we have got responsibly. Yeah, I think that the planning of cities and what cities are like has to be changed, and like a lot of European cities, the pedestrian is king. You know, that they are designed for the pedestrian, and traffic gives way to the pedestrian. You know, you don't hover at a pedestrian crossing wondering if anyone's going to stop. They start slowing down from, you know, a mile away if they see you anywhere near the crossing. And I think the centres of cities should be pedestrian areas. I think that, you know, maybe a circuit of a transport system around them, but when cities become pedestrian, and it's rather like our walkway, you know, where it adopts a different ambience, and people stroll and they talk, and they're not ducking and diving for cover from vehicles and so on. They're not moving at speed. It affects the social climate of the place, and I think you know, a place like New Plymouth, we could easily do that. Big pedestrian zone right through the middle of it, and forget about having through traffic with vehicles and the like. Well, the main change is is where the coastline has retreated. In the 30 odd years we've been here, I would estimate that the coastline has gone back at least 50 metres. There used to be double rows of sandhills out here when we first came onto the farm 25 years ago, which have since gone. And I know that the neighbour's fence has been moved twice, 20 metres each time, and that second 20 metres is now sort of just about ready to drop into the sea again. So in terms of erosion, it's been phenomenal. The sea itself, I mean, I'm a fisherman, and we're blessed living here. You know, to have the kaimoana that we have is well, it's an extraordinary blessing, and we all are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that remains the case, and that means, okay, there's the structural things to assist that in terms of like the Paraninihi Marine Reserve and that sort of thing, the retired areas. My only regret there is I think that's a zone that should extend out further, so that we get the various ecosystems at various depths also being protected, not just the close-in coastal waters. And I think in terms of commercial fishing, I don't think commercial fishing should ever overtake the possibility that as an island nation we lose the ability to go out and harvest our own fish as of right. You know, that is something we should always be able to do. So anything to do with profits from commercial fishing and whatever it does to GDPs and everything else, as islanders, we need to be able to go to sea and catch fish.
Yeah, and I definitely believe in the quota system, that people take basically just what they need per person.
It's called a personal quota.
Personal quota, yeah, I do. And I think there should be something to do with whitebait. I think there should be...
Yeah, absolutely.
That whitebait, there should be a quota, or that shouldn't be able to be sold for huge amounts of money. Because the whitebait definitely are running out.
We have a whitebait river on our boundary, so we have a vested interest in this idea. But you know, there we have one fish getting to be in short supply that doesn't have a quota. You know, it's not protected as snapper and shellfish and so forth. You know, now I don't understand why that is, and I don't think people should be able to stand on the rivers through the summer harvesting these as
winter, spring,
through the spring, harvesting this fishery to flog off at high prices, untrammeled. There's no other fishery that you can do that with, and the whitebait shouldn't be done either. And also, if people like properties like our own, which have got these delicate estuarine areas or ecological areas that are threatened by stock, those sorts of areas have to be protected, and they need to be mandated to be protected, not just on the volition of willing farmers or landowners. That is part of the responsibility of owning that type of country. You need to protect it, and if you're not willing to do it, then it's in my view the state's responsibility to mandate that those protections are in place.
We all are just protectors of the land. We don't own it. That it's for us to take care of. And we're very privileged in New Zealand to be able to live on a piece of land that we call our own, but it's not ours in a sense, but that we are protectors of it and carers of it, and that we learn to care for it properly.
My notion of sustainability is that the land that we occupy should be treated as an entity, and its requirements should be attended to in order that it can continue to be a sustaining whenua. And on our place here we have got relatively unproductive sectors of the landscape, like steep sidelings and wetlands and river courses and so forth, that have been retired and replanted into native. Now, what's being sustained here? I would say that the land is getting a balance attached to it, but also we are being sustained. We are sustained by converting what was a totally barren 35 acres.
No trees.
There was
here at all.
barely a tree on the place, 1 or 2 pine trees and so on. And after 35 years, we now have an environment which has got a lot of native material growing on it. We've got native birds that are, winging around. We've got tuis and bellbirds going to town at this point in time, and the moorpork crying at night. And these sounds were not here when we first arrived, and now they are. And so that's an aspect of sustainability, surely. That if you have the good fortune to occupy space, as we do, and a precious environment like this, then you are bound, I think, by our human custodianship to make sure you do it right.
I mean, too many countries, in tropical countries, with just all the trees are being cut down. We've got to plant as many as we can to sustain our air on the planet, and also just to be in touch with nature, to be in touch with life, the life force, that's out there, which is in us, but to connect with it. It's just out there behind the clouds, but every morning I look to see if I can see it. It's just part of its presence is so much part of you here in Taranaki. But that mountain, it's a fantastic mountain because it provides a lot of water. It's just so many rivers off it that feed the land and feed the farms and feed people's homes all the way down.
Well, it affects the it affects the weather. It gathers the clouds.
That's
it
right.
gives the rain. All of that, and it's just magnificent. It's Taranaki.